There is always going to be a market for this. And Kevin and I, we've talked about this. We don't look at buggy whip factories. We look at something that has an extended runway. As far as we can see, we've got at least 20 to 30 years before, whatever this product is can be replaced. So that's sort of our horizon.
We are big embracers of culture, and when we go in, we have these conversations face to face with the owners. We tell them, look, your business is 20 or 30 years because you've built this great product, great culture around it, and we are going to come in and absolutely do nothing but foster and encourage the continuation of that culture. Most of these owners, it's their second family. And so when you make that decision to part with someone, have a comfort level that whom you're partnering with is going to continue to treat your employees like you have, foster that culture, as we mentioned before. It's a family business most of the time with these guys, and so continue to foster that growth.
Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Raise and Exit podcast. And today we have two guests, not just one. We have both Kurt and Kevin from Big 7 Ventures. They're here to go and share with you the wisdom that they have gained in their career and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis in making investments into fundamental businesses that are the essential backbone of America. And they have a different approach to how they look at it, a different niche. And I think they'll go and give you a perspective on what it is to find the right fit as a founder or a business owner that is looking to sell but not quite leave the business just yet. So on that note, Kurt and Kevin, please introduce yourselves briefly. Tell us a little bit more about the investment thesis that would kind of just attract the right seller or somebody looking for an investment from Big 7 Ventures.
Thanks, Edgar. Kevin, I'll take this. Kurt, there's four of us. There's four. I don't want to say headless horsemen. There's four horsemen involved in Big 7 Ventures. You get half the team. Today, our investment thesis is this, and it was founded primarily. It comes from my background, 25, 30 years in basic manufacturing. I understand the whole, and I'm not going to get into political discussion here, but I saw where the puck was going to go in terms of onshoring. I had been previously involved in these lengthy supply chains, and the minute during COVID there was a hiccup, I sort of had an aha moment and went, this very, very fragile system is not a great model going forward. And I saw that we saw that there was going to be a need for this onshoring and being closer to your suppliers, and within 3 hours of the same time zone. Not, we weren't talking at night to India in the morning or vice versa. So our thesis is we love industrial niche businesses that have been around for 25, 30, 40 years. It may be second generation who that comprises the ownership, at any given point. So that's really our target. It's from 10 to 25 million top line. We like fixer uppers. It's funny. We briefly touched on we talked about 2008. That was obviously very dark days indeed. But then you fast forward to the next big hiccup, which was COVID. And we always like to see, what did the numbers do during COVID? And if these businesses that we are targeting and that we're working with, and we see that they were resilient enough to weather the COVID storm, I mean, that's just that's another box that we like to check and go, okay, this is a real business. Because if you can get through that, chances are you have competent management, and they know if a pivot's required or this, that, and the other. It's a solid foundation. So niche businesses in the industrial space, we're very agnostic what those are. Parts that go into parts, industrial services, anything like that. So
I was saying AI companies don't come here. You're very clear on the value proposition that you're bringing in here, and I love it. Yeah. Kevin, over to you.
We tell our limited partners we are quintessentially the opposite of tech and AI.
Yeah. I think that's a very important consideration because I think we have this high romanticism of kind of like the latest technology. And I think a lot of people actually forget about the fundamentals that make this this country run. I'm a huge fan of what Warren Buffett has gone and done at Berkshire, and with Charlie Munger and how they went and looked at value-based investment of like, hey, like, under what conditions would this company stop being relevant? And I think this kind of goes to the thesis that you go and run, which is you're investing into essential businesses. Like, these are not like trends that for 15 years you're going to go and churn out cash and then they're going to become obsolete. So maybe you can tell me a little bit, build on what you said there, Kurt, and maybe on the fact that these companies made it through COVID, but they made it through COVID not just based off of being able to run their business. They also made it through because of the fact that they were developing or producing something that was necessary. So how does like essential businesses, how does somebody actually realize that maybe I'm running an essential business, but didn't think about it that way?
Yeah, Edgar, good question. Again, the way we would define essential business is, for example, my background is in, and it's terribly unsexy, but it's in commercial plumbing products that go on the wall, so no one ever sees them. But I have to, and I'll share with you the experience of COVID at the time that I was in corporate America. There was this funny maybe 3 or 4 week period where the world was ending and this, that, and the other. But as a lot of different industries, people were huddled down and Zooming. They were running their business from Zoom. Well, we were running factories, so our customers said the demand isn't where it was, say last year at this time. But let me tell you, we're still building. We still need your product, and you need a workforce there producing. So, we were the quintessential essential product at that point, or in our sort of our market ecosystem. So these things never go away, and I think a lot of people were really confused that you can't run. Thanks to Elon Musk. What was it, about 2 years ago, when he said, "Hey, workforce has to come back to work," and the funny part of that is, having been involved in manufacturing and people and equipment, I thought, remote work is not an option. So again, that word essential. And I looked at these businesses, and this is in my corporate life, and I looked at these businesses and said, the demand will always outweather these, whether it was a 2008 thing, which I hope we'll never revisit, or COVID in 2020. There is always going to be a market for this, and it's not. And Kevin and I, we've talked about this. It's we're not a buggy whip. We don't look at buggy whip factories. We look at something that has an extended runway, and as far as we can see, we've got at least 20 to 30 years before whatever this product is can be replaced. So that's sort of our horizon. And again, essential is it's not gonna go away, and AI cannot replace it. And the funny part of it is we use AI extensively in our sort of day-to-day business. So it's a great tool to have, but again, it's not AI. And if you want for example, if you want your water to enter a building, you need piping, and you need the systems. You need people making those products, and then you need people installing them.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Kurt, in terms of that context. And what I think you're also pointing to there is the investment thesis or the rationale. So I'd actually like to kind of have you gentlemen, maybe you can kind of address in terms of how companies that are looking to sell, or founders or ownership that is looking to sell, how they make the decision to go to somebody such as your organization, where you only make a few investments a year or a few acquisitions a year. Because I think it's a different dynamic, right? Like if you're a larger scale PE firm that is, acquiring companies with 100, 500 million in revenue, et cetera, like they're looking at hundreds of deals, making dozens of due diligence exercises, potentially making dozens of offers in a year, especially if they're doing bolt-ons. But you're looking at more smaller, fundamental businesses. So how can somebody kind of self-identify, hey, maybe I would want to come to and sell to or get an investment from somebody like Big 7 Ventures? What does a founder need to ask themselves to say, this is better for me versus somebody else?
Kevin?
I think, from where we like to think we separate from the rest is we like to go meet these owners face to face and get comfortable with us with them and vice versa. And as Kurt mentioned before, we are big embracers of culture. And when we go in and we have these conversations face to face with the owners, we tell them that, look, your business is 20 or 30 years because you've built this great product, great culture around it. And we are going to come in and absolutely do nothing but foster and encourage the continuation of that culture. And, we ask the sellers to come along for the ride, oftentimes, if they're willing to do so, and invest back into the new entity and help us, most of the time what we've found is the owners are just exhausted from the day-to-day operational of running the business.
That's a great point that you're saying there, Kevin, because it goes to why are you selling? Right? We work with companies, we speak with founders, we speak with ownership. Like they're like, well, why are you raising money? Right? Sometimes it's like, we're bleeding money. Okay, that's a problem. But like sometimes it could be because of growth equity. But in your situation here, right? Why are you selling? So what are some questions that you'd recommend for somebody to ask themselves to actually figure out why they're selling and that they're ready to sell? What's something two of you would recommend?
Well, we'll be flat out honest and say, you got this great business. Why are you selling it? And I would say literally 7 out of 10 times, the owner will say, you know what? I just don't want to do the day-to-day stuff and be burdened with that. I want to go back to being more creative, problem solving. And if I don't have to worry about the day-to-day, I can now focus on maybe entering a new market where I didn't have the time or the bandwidth to do so before. Maybe it's, opening up a new factory in Texas and they're based in Washington.
Yeah.
So in many cases, the owner wants to put back on their creative hat that they had when they were 30, 40 and do what you go and just rid themselves of the day-to-day monotony.
I love what you're pointing to there, Kevin, because a lot of time people go and think that selling is the exit event, but what you're actually going and talking about here is it's a transition back to why you go and love what you're doing. Like I've spoken to a lot of venture-seeking companies, and they're like, look, I don't want to waste my time raising money. I know I need to raise my money. And I'm like, so why are you raising money? They're like, I just want to build products. I just want to solve customer problems, and I just want to make the money problem go away. And I think what you're talking about is people are coming and they're wanting to kind of get rid of the hassle, but hand it over to competent people that are not going to go and drop the ball in the process. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's exact. And we're going to go in there, and if they decide to come along for the ride with Big 7, we're going to reward them. We're going to reward the employees that make it all happen, with the premise that, hey, a rising tide lifts all boats, and everyone's going to enjoy the success of the company.
And tell me a bit about that aspect, because this kind of goes back to like the culture piece that you've talked about, the philosophy, the rationale for why somebody would come to Big 7. Are you also structuring your deals differently in terms of how people get rewarded or when they get like a subsequent financial event? Tell me a bit more of how you think through structuring deals, because I find founders don't think about enough. It's not just the number, it's how you get to the number.
Edgar, I'll give it a try, Kevin. What we have found is one size does not fit all, and back to Kevin's point, I mean, usually our first question with a founder owner is, why are you selling? What about your son and your daughter? Do you have any family members that want to take this over? Because this makes no sense to us. This is a wonderful legacy. It's kicking off cash. You've built a great lifestyle. Why are you doing that? So that I think for sellers, owners, founders, when we ask them that question in terms of why do you want to monetize all this, I think they're a little taken aback, because our first question is, hey, if this is my company, I wouldn't sell, because it's plug and play, and we don't ever try and talk them out of selling, but we always like to figure out what exactly, what's their motivation. And I think Kevin hit the nail on the head when he said, yeah, they'd like to get back to the creative. They're tired of the competitive, and they want to get back to the creative. And you can dump all that regulatory and forecasting and commercial debt partnering. You can give that all to us, and all you need to do is come in, shake the hands of your 30, 40, 50 person workforce, and do what you like to do. Roll back the clock 25 years ago. So that was a very important point Kevin made. And we when we approach bankers and we'll say, hey, I know you're representing XYZ company, we'd like to meet them. And bankers are really, they're very protective of their clients, and I can't really figure out why. Yeah, sure. We do, and again, it's for us. Most of our deals have been done face to face. And if you're an LOI, coming through, if you're just a set of numbers, we really have, we're very handicapped, because, and I can tell any seller out there that we're most likely not going to be the highest bid, but we take a much more holistic approach, and so that sort of dovetails into, we are so confident in what we can do with the company, and utilizing that delta, that growth that they haven't hit, or exploring new markets geographically or product wise, and we're so confident in our abilities to do that. We'll structure the deal, and I said earlier, one size does not fit all, but there's the traditional, hey, we want Mr. Seller to roll, I don't know, 20 or 25% equity, and a lot of the owners and sellers are thinking, I want the cash. Oh, okay, fine. We do, any seller that says, I'm out, a microphone drop, peace out, I'm taking my money, I'm out. That makes us a little nervous, because, I guess they don't love their business as much as we thought they did, and B, they're not willing to go on a little journey with us for 3 to 5 years and watch what we can do with it. So to me, when an owner says, cash me out, I'm done, we collectively, the four of us always get together and think, this one doesn't really feel right, because clearly he's not confident. He's not confident in the market. He's not confident in the runway. He's not confident in the growth, opportunities. And I can say without exception, every deal we do, an owner stays in, and they can roll in the traditional equity. I mean, so our batting average is 1,000. They'll roll in traditional equity, or a combination of some sort of earn up. We like that because essentially, it's just sort of off balance sheet financing. But that tells me that they are confident. They got their base number, they cashed out, they have a big chunk of dough in the bank, but working with us, we can add. The sale price is always going to go up, never going to go down with an earn up. So a lot of our owners, sellers, founders really like that. They get the big chunk of dough up front. We leave a little on the table. We don't give it to them all, and we say, well, let's hit over the next 3 years. Let's hit these marks, and then everybody can pat themselves on the back and tell each other how smart they are, and cash a larger check. Year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think you've opened up so many different pieces in kind of what you just alluded to there, Kurt, because there's a couple of things that kind of jump out at me. Like one is, what do you actually need to go and have ready to go and do this type of deal from a due diligence point of view, right? So what does a founder need to go and have? Or what are you seeing as the lack of experience in kind of going through this? And I have a few follow-ups in there, but let's just go and look at that. Like, how does a founder get themselves ready so that you don't go and have deal hesitancy? Mm-hmm. Like, how can a founder set themselves up to go successfully into these types of conversations that you're seeing the shortfalls from? Like, what are big errors that are being made or big omissions? And not intentional necessarily, but just like they don't know to know.
I would say on the start of that is... oftentimes these companies sort of have a little lack of financial sophistication. So when we come in and we request, hey, balance sheets, income statements, things like that, those ducks aren't lined up yet. And so, it's not intentional by any means. Don't get me wrong. They're not doing it intentionally to move the shells or the ducks or whatever. Yeah. But it's just oftentimes they're just not ready to reveal or give us access to that information. So I would say heading into, if you were going to, a seller, have your data vault ready to go where you're able to share the necessary financial information with the potential suitors.
And I would add to that, Edgar, I think a lot of owner founders, sellers, they're under this misconception that they actually have to have a bank book or a big JP, whatever huge investment bank you want to pick. You don't need that. You just need clean numbers. And clear, if you've been in business for 25 years, and we can look at a balance sheet in about 3 seconds and go, oh yeah, this is legit. There's nothing weird going on here. But if you don't need this big production, you just need a good set of books, not great. You need a good set of books, and you need to let us go through them. But I think I think this deal anxiety with a smaller seller, founder, owner, I think they get sort of caught up in the process that, oh my God, I have to go find an investment bank. I have to put together the package, this, and they're going to spend $250,000 to get to the point where they hand this over to like a Kurt and Kevin, and what do Kurt and Kevin do? We don't even pay attention to those damn things. We just kind of flip through to the basics. I don't care about their market. I don't care about, potential billion-dollar markets that they haven't explored, because clearly, if those markets were out there, they would have already done it. So I think a lot of the big banks that do this for smaller companies, I think it's totally overkill. I think it's a waste of their money. And at the end of the day, we just want good, clean numbers, and we'll let our professionals go in there. And when we do our quality of earnings, which is really the cornerstone, they'll go in there and ask all those questions. But I do think some of the smaller businesses, say the $10 to $25 million, I think they think it's a bigger process than it actually is, and it's quite simple actually. Give us the numbers, and we'll tell you if they're good or not. And I got to tell you, 99 out of 100 times they are good. And we're going to ask for, we'll have a long list, and then just start knocking them off. Give us the stuff. Let us have our committee meetings, and then we're gonna do a deal. It's not complicated.
I
also
love it.
think,
I love it. Just want to quickly kind of go and highlight something here, Kurt, that you're pointing to, which is you have different due diligence needs depending on the type of business and the type of transaction. And I think what you're pointing to is you got to be figuring out what type of deal you want to go through to determine the type of prep you want to go through. I think that's a really understated and under-recognized point for a lot of founders. And I would assert that some investment banks, if not most investment banks, gloss over it because they're incentivized by being part of the deal. Mm-hmm. But what you're talking about is you may need to just tune it down. Kevin, over to you.
no, I was just going to say, I think oftentimes private equity gets sort of a bad rap. And some of these owners who feel maybe are intimidated by private equity and see the banker as their guardian. Hey, protect me against these sharks. And Kurt and I are about as harmless as harmless, but it's just you sit there and you go, like I've had conversation with seller or people, and they're like, oh, you're private equity. You guys lie for a living. And I'm like, whoa, we haven't even had a conversation yet, and you're already putting me in this category. And it's kind of like, hold on, take your guard down here. We're just looking to have a conversation, and it's so.
I think it's so good. It's so good what you're pointing to, and I want to kind of highlight another piece that's here that you're kind of bringing forth, which is the nature of the deal. What it sounds like is you're really focusing around continuity of operations, which I think is very different from some other private equity firms that are maybe a bit more financial engineering like, where they're like, hey, we want to roll this up, right? We want to go and kind of like drive that inorganic revenue to get to a critical mass so that it becomes attractive to the next tier of the private equity firm, which then goes and takes it to the next critical mass, which might like result in an IPO. And if I'm hearing things right, this is really more of the operator continuity focused, different type of due diligence, different type of private equity participation. So with that in mind, what are like 2 to 3 things from each of you that would help somebody, a founder or a business owner, self-identify that this continuity path makes more sense than maybe that big noise that's out there around private equity or investment banking led deals? So what are like those 2 to 3 things that you'd kind of go bam, 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 you'd want to consider as a seller?
Edgar, if I could, I would say, number one, find an agent you trust. Whether it's a banker or a broker or an accountant or a trusted advisor. There's enough platforms out there. If you want to advertise for sale, that your business is for sale, you can get it out there. You can get it out there at a reasonable cost. Not just this, not a mega bank level type deal. And number two is, it's all run off of multiples. And I as a seller, you have to be very real about where you fall, where businesses similar to yours trade, and that's just managing expectations. And then I would say number three, anybody can raise capital, anybody can bring in a commercial partner, anybody can package the deal, and you're going to get a check out of this. But my third point is, like the people you're selling to, because if you care about your employees, or we like to call them team members, if your team members that have been working for you for 15, 18, 20 years, maybe their son works for you or their brother works for you, and there's a family element to it, be very careful who you partner with, and maybe you take a small reduction in the multiple and the actual size of the check that you get, knowing that your people are going to be cared for, and the next generation of workers are going to be cared for, for the next 10 or 15 years. And there are those sellers out there. Mm-hmm. So you better trust and like your partner that they will do the right thing after you ride off into the sunset with your big check.
Yeah. That's very helpful. Kevin, how about you? What is like your words of wisdom that you'd kind of pass on?
Well, off of Kurt's third point, definitely partnering, deciding who you're going to partner with and trust them. And as Kurt had mentioned, hey, look, most of these owners, it's their second family. And so when you make that decision to part with someone, have a comfort level that whom you're partnering with is going to continue to treat your employees like you have, foster that culture as we mentioned before. And, it's a family business most of the time with these guys. And so continue to foster that growth.
Yeah.
If I can just interject really quickly. Sorry, Edgar.
No, go ahead, Kurt.
I was just going to say, we do love that family feel, but we have we're not sort of unicorns and fairy tales here. We do, when we come in, we do sort of initiate a new sense of discipline and a new way of looking at things, because obviously we have investors and partners that we have to show return. We look at some of these businesses. They've been run. I don't want to say lazily, but they've been run how they've been run for the last 10 years, and we like to tighten that up, squeeze a lot, as much efficiency as we can, not taking a huge human toll on the workforce, but we do. We're very demanding owners, so we don't come in and just hold hands and sing kumbaya. We respect the culture, but we also most of the time these companies know what their own problems are, and the owner was just too tired to deal with them, and we'll walk in and say, hey, whether it's cash management or receivables. This is very nuts and bolts. This is a very basic playbook, head count, and we'll go in there, and they actually, they know where it has to go, but. My point being is we don't buy and just sort of hope this thing does better and becomes more efficient. We actually walk in with the tools. We'll roll up our sleeves. If they don't know how to do it, we'll work side by side with them. And the name of the game is we got to grow. We have to grow the top line, and we got to grow the bottom line. So that's really the mandate when we walk into these places. But we do it humanely, and we do it respecting the culture of the company.
Gentlemen, it has been fantastic to go and hear what is both it's a capital model, it's private equity, but there's also an ethos. It's a recognition of the fact that there's a continuity requirement versus a financial engineering requirement here. Thank you both for the words of wisdom you've shared, and look forward to having a greater amount of people reaching out to you that have that cultural fit, not just within their organization, but with that next round of ownership of the companies that they've built up. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Edgar.
Thank you, Edgar.
My interview with Kurt and Kevin for the podcast was in some respects the antithesis of a lot of the hype that you go and see around raising money or selling your businesses that are driven around tech and innovation and AI and things like that. What they went and talked about was really around what does it go and take to hand off your business to the next generation? What are the things that you need to think about? Why are you selling? And that is sometimes a very difficult question for people to go and answer, because they're like, well, I want to wrap up, I want to retire, I want to sell what I'm doing. But as we've seen with some of our other guests on the show, maybe you're selling for the benefit of the people that helped to get you here. Maybe you're going and selling for the fact that you want to transition the business to its next generation of value. And what I really love is the human element that Kurt and Kevin brought to here. This is about going and having the foundational businesses that are gone and acquired. These are businesses that survived the ups and the downs and the changes and the competition, ones that are almost timeless and necessary for the economy. And they might not have the same sexiness, but they sure as heck have the same, if not more, immense value inside our systems. So I hope that you are somebody who's listening here, whether you're early on in building your company or close to going and exploring its sale, that you consider, why are you selling? How do you want to hand this over? How do I provide the confidence to my buyers that I'm not hiding something because I just got to get out under duress? And I think those are all things that are valuable to go and consider, and probably much earlier than you think in the building of your business. If you haven't really set up an exit plan for yourself, as you've heard from some of our guests previously, then you're potentially putting yourself at a disadvantage. So with that in mind, take a step back, have a coffee, have a drink, and reflect on, if I sold today, why would I sell?